Hello and welcome to YTV. I'm Danielle Trubow.
And I'm Raleigh, Cavero. Over the summer, Yale released its biannual sexual misconduct report, sparking a flurry of controversy on campus and across the country. Last night, we brought in an expert to help us understand why. Joining us in the studio was our special correspondent, Cynthia Hua, who has been covering this story in the YDN for the past year. Here's the interview.
Cynthia, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So Yale has been releasing these reports for 2 years. Where did this practice start? Can you give us a little background?
Right. After 16 students and alumni filed a Title IX complaint against the university in 2011, the university began releasing these reports in an effort to increase transparency and to promote community dialogue about the school's sexual misconduct reporting resources.
Okay, so what's so controversial about this summer's report? Why all of the national media attention?
Right, this is the 4th semi-annual report, and it's definitely gotten a lot more attention than several of the past reports. This report includes 4 updates to previously reported cases involving allegations of non-consensual sex, and allowed us to see what consequences were given out by the university-wide Committee on Sexual Misconduct in those cases. These 4 cases have all been written about before, but this is the first report that includes the disciplinary consequences they ended in.
Okay, so can you tell me what those consequences were and why they sparked controversy on campus?
Yeah, the severity of punishments is definitely at the center of this debate. Out of the 4 cases, 1 perpetrator received a 2-semester suspension and was placed on probation, and the other 2 cases ended in consequences ranging from probation to written reprimands. And many students have questioned if these consequences are severe enough for cases of sexual assault.
Okay, so then how are these students speaking out? How are they responding?
Directly following the report's release, students put up 2 petitions on change.org, both of which received hundreds of signatures. Both petitions demanded stronger sanctions in cases of sexual assault from the university. In the past month, students have also formed a group, Students Against Sexual Violence at Yale, or SASV, to advocate administrators for policy and program changes related to sexual misconduct. And SASV, I know, met with administrators earlier this week, and I believe will be meeting with administrators again in the future.
Okay, and these students that you're talking about, SASV, they aren't only concerned with the severity of punishments, but also the severity of terminology that the university is using. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Right, well, students and alumni have questioned the use of what they feel is ambiguous language in the report, such as non-consensual sex. For example, after the report's release, over 200 alumni signed an open letter to administrators questioning the use of the term non-consensual sex, which they feel may seem not as strong as the use of the term sexual assault.
Okay, so can you tell me the difference then between non-consensual sex and sexual assault?
According to the report, non-consensual sex is a form of sexual assault, so it's a subcategory. And the university released a set of frequently asked questions after the report came out to try to clarify some of the confusion around these terms. And Yale currently defines consent as positive, unambiguous, voluntary agreement to engage in specific sexual activity throughout a sexual encounter.
Okay, all right, and the university's definition of consent seems very strict. Why is that?
Well, Deputy Provost Stephanie Spangler has said that Yale's broad definition of sexual misconduct and strict definition of consent allows the university to discipline behaviors that in some cases may not meet a criminal standard.
All right, so where do you see this going in the future? What developments might we see this semester?
The university has promised to release a set of scenarios describing sexual misconduct cases and their hypothetical sexual misconduct cases and their consequences. And the scenario will allow the community to discuss this issue in more detail by referring to specifics.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that report, Cynthia. We appreciate your expert knowledge on this issue, and we will definitely look forward to hearing more from you whenever the administration releases the scenarios.
Amid increased emphasis on improving STEM teaching, the university has begun a 3-year, $130 million renovation on the Sterling Chemistry Lab. The project will expand the building's chemistry and biology lab space, widen its hallways, and build glass walls and ramps. The back half of the lab will also become a 3-floor teaching lab center. Although some labs will be relocated to accommodate construction, administrators said the renovations adhere to professors' teaching preferences and will make the building shine. The project is slated to be completed August 2016. And as you're searching for classes this shopping period, you're probably going online to the revamped Yale Blue Book or Yale Plus. But for many Yaleys, nothing replaces that beloved 700-page Yale College programs of study. And luckily for them, despite the university's 2011 announcement that it would discontinue printing, the Blue Book still survives in its physical form. For the last 2 years, Yale limited its mailings to freshmen and interested upperclassmen. 2013 marks the end of mailings, but the Blue Book is still available in the bookstore. The demand was so high that employees stopped swiping IDs and giving receipts, resorting to simply checking IDs. The Sustainability Office expressed confidence that the transition to an online-only catalog would occur as soon as possible, but the nostalgic among us will be happy to curl up with a real-life Blue Book this fall.
Professor John Darnell received his 1-year suspension months ago, but the effects are still being felt by students and faculty in the Near Eastern Languages and Civilizations Department. Due to sanctions from the University-wide Committee on Sexual Conduct, Darnell will not be returning to Yale until at least next fall. Because of this, the Egyptology program will not be able to accept new graduate students until 2016. This year, the number of students accepted into NELC dropped from 4 to 3, and many students and faculty fear for the future of the department.
Though New Haven residents are occupied with the mayoral race, Yale students in Ward 1 will face another choice come the November election. Who shall represent them on the city's Board of Aldermen? For more, we go to Jen Kramer.
Thanks, Danielle. New Haven's Ward 1 contains the heart of Yale's campus, including 8 of its residential colleges. Historically, Yale students have run as Democrats for the ward's aldermanic seat. But this year, we're looking at a different kind of race. 2 years ago, Yale senior Sarah Idelson defeated sophomore Vinay Nayak in a race that brought a record 963 Ward 1 voters to the polls. Now an alumna, Idelson hopes to repeat her success.
It's been an immense privilege to represent students on the board so far, and we have made some huge strides, myself and my colleagues, toward building the New Haven that we really want to live in, but there is so much more that's possible in the next 2 years.
Challenging Idelson is Yale senior Paul Chandler. Chandler is breaking the norm by running as a Republican. Currently, all 30 aldermen are Democrats, and Ward 1 hasn't seen a Republican candidate in 2 decades.
When people hear Republican, they often think about things that happen on the federal level, these big social policies that, day in, day out, we hear in the news, we read about, everyone has very strong opinions on, and I have my own opinions. But the reality is that as a member of the Board of Aldermen, none of those things really cross my desk. Everything I do is on a local level.
Chandler feels that as a student, he has an advantage over Idelson in a ward that is dominated by Yale students.
It allows me to have a greater amount of face time with them. So, you're walking around campus, chances are you're going to pass me. I'm walking to class too. I'm going to be around you.
Idelson, however, says the range of her experiences in New Haven sets her apart as a candidate.
I'm running because of the sum of my experiences in New Haven as a student at Yale, transitioning into graduating and building a life here.
As November approaches, you can be sure that students will be knocking on doors and handing out flyers for the candidates. For YTV, this is Jen Kramer with Kodra Marassi. Back to you.
Students registered to vote in Connecticut can do so on November 7th. The Back to School show will introduce you to all 4 acres. We now hand it over to Lillian Fast and Madison Alworth.
Thank you, Danielle. I'm Lily Fast.
And I'm Madison Alworth. Gourmet Heaven, the popular late-night spot for Yaleys, is apparently not so heavenly for its own employees. Just this last Friday, demonstrators marched on Broadway asking Yaleys to boycott the beloved foodie landmark. The protests come after discoveries made by the Connecticut Department of Labor. The department released findings that the business misclassified at least 15 employees as independent contractors, forcing employees to work 72-hour weeks and compensating them with less than $4 an hour. That is under half of the Connecticut $8.25 minimum wage. As a result, Gourmet Heaven will be fined $300 for every week an employee was working but not on the proper payroll. Demonstrators, including some of Yale's own, will continue to protest every Friday outside of GHEV until worker conditions improve. And it's all aboard for the scientists and visiting researchers of Yale's West Campus. More than a decade and $130 million later, a new stop at the West Haven train station has opened, similarly opening the accessibility of the newer campus. As Scott Strobel, the Vice President for West Campus Planning and Program Development, explained, the development signals the campus's growing connectedness and importance to the university. State officials decided upon the West Haven location to break up the stretch between New Haven and Milford. The City of West Haven plans to improve the new stop by adding a bike path and sidewalk to further increase the accessibility.
This week, Connecticut State Senator and mayoral hopeful Tony Hart received a major endorsement from U.S. Senator Chris Murphy. Senator Murphy's vote of confidence came on the heels of Connecticut Governor Dan Malloy's endorsement just 2 weeks ago. Ms. Hart's endorsements have put her as the perceived frontrunner in the mayoral race, and with less than 2 weeks before the September 10th Democratic primary, the four candidates sought to distinguish themselves from one another at this Wednesday's final debate. The candidates touched on topics ranging from economic policy to education to public safety, and in an effort to gain support from the younger populace, the candidates have also begun to reach out to Yale students. Stay tuned for the primary results as well. And now we take it to the football field to check in with our very own Bulldogs as they prepare for the start of the season just around the corner.
Last August, the football team was adjusting to a new coaching staff while trying to put the Rhodes controversy in its past. This preseason, however, things are going much more smoothly. It's head coach Tony Reno's second year at the helm, and the Bulldogs are approaching the 2013 season with a renewed focus and an optimistic outlook on the year.
We got a lot of energy going on, right from the get-go. I think we're leaps and bounds ahead of where we were last year.
They're carrying themselves the right way. They're competing every day, so we're really excited about that.
After establishing his expectations last year, Reno feels that his players now share his vision for the program.
What we've been able to do in a year, our players, coaches, and just the whole football program has just been able to change the culture. Our guys, the expectations are different.
Instead of him setting the standard and demanding the standard, it's more the core of the team bringing guys in.
The upperclassmen are doing a good job of passing that down to the freshmen.
One of Reno's adjustments has been a renewed focus on the process of improvement rather than the team's eventual end goal.
We don't talk about championships or anything. We don't even talk about winning games. We talk about the process. We talk about taking it one step at a time. If we already think about game 10, week 10, we're going to miss everything in between.
And two of the central forces fueling this process will be freshman Victor Igu and returning junior Tyler Varga. Having received offers from over a dozen top football programs, Igu hopes to bring his nationally acclaimed speed and strength to the outside linebacker position. On the other side of the ball, the Bulldogs will look to Varga to spark the offense. He has already been showered with honors, including spots on 2 preseason All-America teams.
Preseason honors, it's nice, but doesn't mean anything until, you do something on the field, so.
The team will be challenged early when it takes to the road for 3 of its first 4 games, including trips to nationally ranked teams from Colgate and Cal Poly.
Road games help build your team. I think they help mold your team, they help build your team. I mean, there's a lot of camaraderie with it, and we're hoping that whether it's Colgate all the way through Cal Poly, we're able to see who we're going to be.
Even though the buzz continues to build around the Elis, Yale fans will have to wait until the team's first home game, September 28th against Cornell, to see the Bulldogs in action. If the team's current mindset is any indication, the Bulldogs will be locked in and ready to go. Back to you in the studio.
Every summer, Yaleys and students alike find internships that fulfill their career goals and somehow leave their wallets empty. Our reporter Chantel Simpson joins us now to tell us how Yale approaches with the issue of unpaid internships.
Thank you, Lily. In this week's weekend cover, Jackson McHenry discussed Yale's experiences attaining summer internships and fellowships. There are still many internships in varying fields that do not pay their interns, making it difficult for students to leave home and work in cities where certain industries thrive. Yale's Office of Fellowships and many academic departments have been working for years to close the opportunity gap created by the country's culture of unpaid internships.
We're really lucky at Yale that we do have so many fellowships available to students. And one thing I like to remind students of is that behind every fellowship there's a donor. There's a donor who had a set of money that they said, rather than keeping this, I would like to make it available for these students so that way they have the opportunity to make possible something that's really going to matter to them, that they can really carry forward to their future careers or future endeavors.
With an increased interest among students in some industries like science and engineering, the amount of funding available for related jobs has appeared to swell as well.
For these last 2 years, I think the opportunities for scientists at Yale have really increased, particularly for undergraduates. More and more people are wanting to do research, particularly with their new initiative with the Yes Weekend program, which is the Yale Engineering and Science, which is recruitment for undergraduate science majors. And I think with that, we've had a lot more influx of science students, and because of that, I think they're opening up new funding, new doors, and I think anyone who really wants to have an opportunity in science here at Yale has the funding available for them.
With so many Yaleys vying for funding, some, such as senior Catherine Konietzko, who received 2 grants, have found that fellowships that target a specific audience were less competitive.
One of them was actually specifically for women in politics, so I felt like just by the type of people that the fellowship was looking for, it was going to be less competitive just because the people that would apply would already fit.
Although summer seems a ways away, it's never too early to start thinking about funding. Janine Dames, director of UCS, assures that it's always available for students.
I want to just reiterate that if a student knows they need to get paid for a summer experience, that they come and work with us early because we can help them through that process. But I don't want a student to desert their area of passion just because they're concerned about something that maybe we can help them with.
This has been Chantel Simpson reporting for Weekend. Back to you.
Thank you, Chantel. And for those of you already looking to get away from campus, you can find retreat at the newly established Loud Treehouse. The project, started by Griffin Collier, class of 2013 architecture, was completed after nearly 2 years this past summer.
As always, we leave you with our Everybody Has a Story interview segment. This week, Cody Pomeranz sat down with Yale's new president, Peter Salovey, to discuss a range of hot topics, ranging from sexual misconduct to athletic recruitment. Here are a few highlights from the interview.
President Salovey, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Cody.
So, has it fully sunk in yet? Did President Levin glue your phone or pull any pranks on you when you moved into his office?
Well, it is starting to sink in. You know, we had a very long overlap period, even by academic standards. And I would say that was a gift to both of us.
I wanted to start off, there's certainly been no shortage of issues for you to confront since coming into office. And front and center has been Yale's policy towards sexual misconduct. Now, this has become a national story, and it sparked outrage from students, parents, and alumni, many of whom have signed petitions calling for policy changes. Were you surprised by the backlash? I mean, did this shock you when you heard about it, and was it warranted?
Well, let me start from a couple of years ago, really. So, first of all, I'm very committed to a campus that doesn't have a place at all for rape, for sexual violence, for sexual misconduct. And I know that we want to evolve processes and procedures, as well as prevention programs and education that reduce any of these horrible incidents. It's not the kind of campus culture that we want here. Now, there have been some, I think, very good innovations over the last few years. And they were driven by student interest and student input. I think everyone interested in these issues thinks SHARE and the university-wide committee are an improvement on prior practice. I think the fact that we release a report every 6 months is a level of transparency that, despite the need for incredible confidentiality, that probably is unmatched on any other campus. Having said that, I think we're now having a discussion about displeasure with penalties in some of those cases. And of course, I can't talk about any of those cases. And in fact, many of those cases I don't know anything about them because they're confidential. I think what we need to do is develop, and I talked about this in my message to the community, develop a set of scenarios that make it clear that the full range of penalties is possible, including expulsion. That is the starting point under consideration when a case that of rape is brought forward. Am I surprised that that there's a lot of concern about this issue on campus? Well, no, it's an incredibly important issue. People have very strong feelings about it. Do I think that the confidentiality required as part of our twice-a-year report makes that report difficult to understand, makes it hard to have a dialogue about the meaning of that report? Yes, and that's part of the issue.
But there's certainly, you talk about this being an issue around punishments. I mean, these issues are hitting a lot of top colleges, not just Yale. Duke recently revamped its policies and stiffened its penalties. Is there a collaboration or conversation among university presidents about this issue? I know Duke's president, Richard Broadhead, was your predecessor as Dean of Yale College. Yeah. Have you spoken with him or the president of Amherst or others about this issue?
Yeah, so I go to meetings, and really I'm referring to the period when I was provost, but when I was a Dean of Yale College, I went to meetings with other deans. When I was provost, I went to meetings of other provosts, Ivy League plus, AAU, and now I will go to meetings of presidents. And I will say this is a topic that is discussed at those kinds of meetings. I would say we try to learn from what works best on other campuses. The whole idea of writing up scenarios in part came from looking at how Duke developed its website. We learned from it. So we're very open to it and very open to sharing what we learned too.
When the next report comes out, do you want to see stiffer penalties?
I can't really answer that question because I have to know what the cases are and what the actual behavior is. What I'd rather do is develop a set of scenarios that we can put on the web that make it clear the kinds of penalties that Yale considers, and that make it clear that expulsion is a starting point.
President Levin decided to lower the number of athletes recruited, even lower than Ivy League allows. Many have said that this puts Yale at a disadvantage to many schools in the Ivy League, like Princeton and Harvard. Will you lift President Levin's recruitment caps?
So on this topic of athletics, I am still in listening mode and in fact-gathering mode. I can say this, from having had many conversations with student athletes, with alumni who were athletes when they were here at Yale, with coaches, with Mr. Beckett, the athletic director, and those kind of conversations will continue. But I will say, after having those conversations, the following, I think we want to run an excellent program. And I think that means that the program should be one in which students enjoy their participation, that it fits well with a model of a scholar athlete, that it helps develop leadership, right? That the program is a quality program. I think being competitive on the field or ice or what have you is important.
I want to end with some fun questions. We did this when we sat down with President Levin. We did a speed round. Future Yale honor, Salovey Hall or a campus statue?
I think I will let others decide that. I am going to just try to do the best job I can, and if at some point later in my life somebody wants to honor me with
would you want the statue to have a mustache or no?
Yeah. At that point, if there ever were a statue, we would have to figure out whether the number of years on this campus with a mustache exceeded the number of years without it, and maybe that would determine whether the statue were mustached or not.
Students living in new residential colleges, over or under 5 years?
That's a very good question. I don't know the answer to it yet. I will say we are aggressively fundraising, and we are the beneficiaries of great generosity toward the new colleges, but we have not yet raised all the money for the new colleges, and that is the threshold for building them. Yes, we still have some details to work out. Yes, we still need to appoint a committee that will think about the impact of adding students. All of that will happen. But in a way, the bottom line is when we've got all the money raised and we're not there yet.
President Salovey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Cody. I appreciate it.
And good luck with your first year, and thank you for joining us. We've got an exciting semester planned for you, so make sure to tune in for more interviews with Yale's most interesting students, faculty, community members, and campus guests. As always, for YTV, I'm Cody Pomerantz, and this has been another segment of Everybody Has a Story. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Cody. To watch the full interview with President Salovey, go to yaledailynews.com/YTV under the features page.
To end our broadcast, we'd like to extend a warm welcome to the class of 2017. This year's class continues 2016's increased levels of racial and socioeconomic diversity, unprecedented in the university's history. For these past 2 years, roughly 40% of students have identified as students of color. Also, about 50% of these classes qualified for financial aid. Yale's population has also seen increased numbers of first-generation and low-income students, and more than half of this year's students are from public high schools.
Thanks for being with us tonight. Join us next Sunday at 5 here in the YTV studio. Until then, we leave you with the sights and sounds of today's extracurricular bazaar. Freshmen, it was great meeting you, and welcome because it's your Yale, your year, and your news.